My name is Nathan Cole. I'm 42, and until 4 months ago, I thought I had a stable life, a solid career in corporate strategy, a comfortable suburban home, and a wife I trusted with everything. Her name is Emily. We'd been married 13 years. She taught at a local college, sharp-minded, charismatic, and always impeccably put together. The kind of woman who made rooms turn without realizing it. I met her at a conference when I was 28 and fell fast, the kind of fall you don't brace for. For over a decade, we built a life. Or, at least, I thought we had. Then one Monday morning, she left her wedding ring on the kitchen counter beside my coffee and walked out without a word. I didn't notice the ring until 20 minutes later. I thought it was a mistake, a momentary slip. Maybe she forgot to put it back on after washing her hands. But by noon, I got her text. Nathan, I've met someone else. We've grown apart. I'm sorry. Please don't make this harder than it has to be. Oliver, said Joanne from HR, tone soft but calculated. There was no name, no voice call, just that. I sat frozen in my office, mid-meeting with my team, pretending to listen as timelines and charts blurred into static. I excused myself, walked to the parking garage, and sat in my car for almost 2 hours. No tears, no yelling, just stillness. Like the moment before an earthquake. Quiet, tense, final. That night, I packed a bag and stayed in a hotel near the river. I didn't call her. I didn't answer the flood of texts from friends. I just stared at the city skyline wondering how many other people were sitting in rooms like mine, replaying the same quiet betrayal. 3 days passed. Then I found out who someone else was. Her assistant, Miles, fresh out of undergrad. He used to mow lawns in our neighborhood. Now apparently, he was managing her calendar and her hotel bookings. I laughed when I saw the two of them together in an Instagram story she didn't realize was public. I wasn't even angry yet. That would come later. Right now, I was studying. Because the moment I saw his name, the way she leaned into him in that photo, I realized something very, very important. This wasn't an impulsive mistake. This was planned, rehearsed, executed. She left the ring like a statement. She sent the text with the precision of a resignation letter. And most importantly, she timed it. Because that same day, I had signed a new consulting contract, one that would bring in almost $200,000 by year end. A deal she knew about, but that hadn't yet deposited. She was waiting for the money to land. And once it did, she'd take half. That was the moment the grief died and strategy took over. They thought I would spiral. But they forgot who I was. I don't shout. I design outcomes. When you work in corporate strategy, as long as I have, you learn one fundamental rule. Whoever controls the information controls the outcome. Emily didn't know it yet, but I wasn't playing the husband role anymore. I was back in my real element, data, leverage, and execution. The first thing I did was check the deed. Our house, the big gray colonial we bought 7 years ago, was in my name only. Not because of dominance or control, but because I bought it before we got married and never refinanced. Emily never cared. What's yours is mine, she used to joke. Ironic, considering how hard she was trying to make it hers now. Then I checked the joint accounts. She hadn't touched them yet. But our secondary savings account had a scheduled withdrawal for $50,000, dated the following week. Bold, stupid. It gave me time. Time to act. I spent the next 3 days collecting everything. Chat logs from our shared iPad, still synced to her iCloud. Travel receipts billed to our shared credit card. Voice messages from her student advising email, including one where Miles accidentally said, "Can't wait for our weekend." I booked the same suite. And guess who had equity in that startup? They weren't even subtle. And I wasn't even surprised. What did surprise me, however, was the document I found tucked in our filing cabinet at home, a draft of a separation agreement written 6 months ago. Not signed, not filed, just drafted. It was clean, minimal, and heavily biased toward her. She had planned this for months. I didn't confront her. Instead, I got to work with my friend Darren, a real estate attorney I'd worked with during a commercial property deal years back. I explained everything. He smirked. "You want to give her the house?" They had planned it. "Exactly," I said. "Voluntarily. As a peace offering." She was sharp, by the book, and deeply unpopular with the executive team. Darren narrowed his eyes. "And what's the catch?" "Chloe, it's Oliver Grant." "No catch," I replied. "I just want her to believe she's winning." 2 hours later, she replied. Emily's pride was her greatest weakness. If she thought I was walking away, broken, ashamed, eager to move on, she wouldn't question it. And if she thought I was the type to give up something valuable just to avoid pain, even better. Because while she was settling into her new life with a free house and young assistant boyfriend, I'd be dismantling everything she didn't even know I controlled. She had the ring. She had the boy. Now she could have the house, too. But everything else was still mine. 2 weeks after her dramatic exit, I invited Emily to lunch. Not angry. Not desperate. Just calm. She showed up late, as expected, dressed like she wanted me to see how great she was doing. Black blouse, gold earrings I'd bought her on our 5th anniversary. She smiled too wide. Her eyes scanned the room for power. She didn't find it. "Nathan," she said, sitting across from me. "I wasn't sure if you'd respond." "I figured we needed to talk," I replied, sipping my water. About 10 minutes of empty small talk passed. Her new apartment, her need for space, how things change. But I kept versions. I let her talk. Then I pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. "What's this?" she asked, guarded now. "My offer. You keep the house." Together, we opened our laptops and began comparing files, time-stamped emails, deleted Slack messages, internal memos. Her eyes widened. You're giving it to me?" We'd lost not just money, but $1 billion client. I nodded. "No lawyers. No fight. Clean transfer. You can keep it. I'll even cover the taxes for the first year." I scrolled through the documents and saw something else. A meeting invite dated one day before the disaster, between Ethan and the CTO, with subject line. For a moment, she looked unsure. This wasn't what she expected. She had prepped for conflict, not generosity. "Why?" she asked finally. I leaned forward. "Because I want to move on. And I want you to have what you clearly value most." Her face flickered. She wanted to correct me, to say she didn't value the house, that this wasn't about money. But she didn't. Because we both knew it was. She smiled like she'd won. "Thank you," she said, folding the papers and placing them gently in her purse like a trophy. "That's really mature of you." The weight of betrayal wasn't what shook me anymore. I smiled back. We all grow up sometime. Executed in shadows. What she didn't know, couldn't have known, was that the moment she signed those papers and moved in, I activated a second plan. Because while she thought she was securing her future, she was also assuming responsibility for every repair, every pending tax adjustment, and most importantly, every piece of home equity tied to a high-risk commercial lien I had quietly placed a month prior. The house wasn't worth what she thought it was. And the moment she filed for financial division, she'd realize she just took on a beautiful, empty shell, while I held the rest of the real assets untouched, offshore, protected. She thought she got the prize. What she got was a liability. And that was just the beginning. While Emily was busy redecorating the living room and posting filtered photos of her new freedom, with Miles, I returned to my actual battlefield, the firm. I'd been working as a strategic advisor at Graybridge, one of the top consulting firms in the region. I wasn't flashy. I didn't host webinars or chase PR. I built quiet systems, the kind executives whispered about in boardrooms. Efficiency models, risk forecasts, expansion pivots. And apparently, someone wanted me gone. It started subtly. My name left off calendar invites, files disappearing from shared folders, sudden rescheduling of meetings I usually led. For a while, I assumed it was stress. Then I overheard something. Late one night, I stayed behind to prep a report for a European client. Down the hallway, I heard Thomas, one of the senior partners, on a call. Yeah, he's distracted. Personal stuff. Probably best to ease him out before the fall quarter. I sent the first message. Distracted? I checked the project logs. Thomas had been assigning my accounts to a junior consultant, someone I had trained, and rerouting commissions without authorization. And who was the junior consultant? Miles. I couldn't believe it. Miles had gotten his foot in the door through Emily. And now he was in my firm, quietly replacing me. I didn't lash out. Instead, I did what I do best. I audited. I accessed internal tracking software, pulled backup logs, and downloaded every digital trail of client assignments and communication threads for the past 90 days. What I found was exactly what I needed. Not only had Thomas diverted my work, but he'd also forged my signature on 3 strategy decks. Worse, he had overbilled clients by padding hours that weren't logged in the timekeeping system. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't about a love affair. This was a coordinated removal. Emily and Thomas were old university acquaintances. A single LinkedIn post confirmed it. At a conference a year ago, I'd introduced them without thinking. I didn't know they'd stayed in touch. It all clicked. Emily wanted out. She needed leverage. Thomas wanted my portfolio. And Miles? He was the shiny new pawn. They weren't just stealing my life. They were repackaging it. So I scheduled a meeting with the board's ethics council. Not HR. Not Thomas. I walked into the room with a hard drive and a folder. This isn't a complaint, I said. It's a statement of fact. And when the clients see it, they'll walk. Or we can handle it quietly, with the right outcome. The counsel said nothing for a moment. Then he asked, "What outcome do you want?" Chloe's deleted compliance files. I smiled. I want silence, followed by replacement. The invoice trail showing the consulting scam. And that's what I got. 3 days later, Thomas went on sabbatical. So I reached out to Senator Foster's office. Miles' contract was not renewed. We've been tracking similar cases of executive fraud involving untested logistics tech. And me? I was promoted. But I wasn't finished yet. Because Emily still thought she won. And it was almost time to let her know. She hadn't even begun to lose. Emily sent me a photo of the living room last week. Looks amazing, doesn't it? She wrote beneath a filtered image of the couch I bought, next to the fireplace I built, under the roof she now called hers. I didn't reply, because in less than 72 hours, she was going to wish she'd never accepted that house at all. See, what Emily never understood, what she still didn't understand, is that nothing in life is free, especially not gifts, especially not ones wrapped in ego and offered too easily. The house I gave her had a shadow attached, a legal attachment. Remember Darren, my lawyer? We'd filed a lien before the property transfer, a lien tied to a pending business dispute between me and Thomas. Since Thomas had co-signed on the second mortgage I used for a commercial investment years back, and because that mortgage had never been cleanly closed, it created a clouded title on the house Emily now fully owned. She didn't know it yet, but in the eyes of the county clerk, her property was entangled in a creditor's claim. Translation: she owned the house, but she couldn't sell it, refinance it, or legally profit from it until that lien was cleared. And to clear it, she needed me, desperately. The moment she realized it was the day I'd been waiting for. It was Miles' birthday. She threw him a party. Posted balloons, candles, a caption. "So proud of you, babe, new job, new life, new chapter." In writing. 2 days later, she applied for a home equity loan. Denied. Then she tried to refinance. Blocked. She went silent for a week. Then the email came. "Nathan, I think there's something wrong with the paperwork. Can we talk?" There's panic. I waited. 2 more days. Then I called her. She sounded strained. Not angry, not yet. Just confused. "I'm not sure what's going on," she said. "The bank is saying there's a lien? From your old company? Legal's talking settlements." I kept my voice calm. Strange. That must have been tied to that commercial venture I mentioned a few years ago. You remember, right? When you said business wasn't your thing and tuned out. She didn't reply. I'm sure you'll figure it out, I added. Best of luck. She tried to keep it composed. Nathan, be serious. This affects me now. You've got allies, but not enough. No, I corrected. It affects the owner of the house, which is no longer me. Pre-IPO investors. The pause was everything I wanted. You planned this, she whispered. I planned for all outcomes, I said. She hung up. I looked out the window and sipped my tea. It wasn't revenge I felt. It was precision. It was order restored. But I wasn't done. Because the final blow wouldn't be legal. It would be personal. The knock came on a Thursday evening. Quiet, hesitant, familiar. I opened the door to find Emily standing there in a beige coat, no makeup, her hair pulled back. No Instagram filter. No smug expression. Just raw fatigue. I didn't know where else to go, she said, voice barely above a whisper. I stepped aside without a word. She walked in like she still lived there. Funny how fast ghosts return when the walls start closing in. I poured her a glass of water. Not wine. This wasn't a social visit. She sat at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd once signed our joint tax returns, played cards, argued about dinner. Now it was just cold wood and a silence she could no longer fill. I'm sorry, she started. For what? The collapse had begun. She stared at the glass. For all of it. At 9 a.m. I leaned back, arms folded. You're not sorry. You're uncomfortable. But Chloe had a source inside, a friend still working in legal. She blinked. That's not fair. No, I said. What wasn't fair was you planning your exit while I was closing a major deal. What wasn't fair was you parading around with someone who couldn't even legally rent a car while pretending I was the boring one. On the screen, headlines began appearing across the industry feeds. Her lips trembled. Miles he left. And then the big one. Of course he did. She didn't need to say why. The moment the bank flagged the lien and her credit score started bleeding, his shiny new life began to rust. He said I brought too much baggage, she added softly. You did, I said. But I'm not the one who packed it. At 10:12 a.m., she sat there still small. Please, she said after a long pause. Help me fix this. Oliver, said the voice. There it was. The plea. The surrender. And in that moment, I realized something crucial. I didn't need to destroy her. She had done that all by herself. I stood and walked to my desk drawer, pulled out a folder. Inside, a release form drafted by Darren that, if signed, would lift the lien, restore her financial flexibility, and allow her to refinance the house. But it came with conditions. I slid the folder across the table. She opened it slowly, scanning the lines. Her eyes narrowed. You want full waiver of claim and acknowledgement that I abandoned the marriage before negotiations? Reinstatement. Correct, I said. It's a public record form. Generous compensation. She looked up. So I get to keep the house, but I admit I left everything else? You erased emails, shifted blame, and almost destroyed my career. You didn't leave everything, I said. You kept Miles. The house. The pride. What do you want, Oliver? She looked away, then signed. I took the form and tucked it into the envelope. I'll file it tomorrow, I said. You'll be free. Click. She stood up slowly, voice shaking. Do you hate me? I thought about it. No, that would mean I still feel something. But placed on administrative leave pending full investigation. And I didn't. Translation. They were cutting ties without saying so. Not longing. Just completion. She left without another word. And when the door closed behind her, I locked it. For good. 2 months later, I stood in the driveway of a lakefront property I had just purchased, clean, minimalist, and far from anything that reminded me of who I used to be. It wasn't just a new house. It was a line drawn in sand, not salt. I hadn't spoken to Emily since the night she signed the release. I filed the paperwork as promised, lifted the lien, and officially walked away from the house and the marriage. She now had everything she thought she wanted, but nothing she actually needed. I wasn't tracking her, but I didn't have to. Mutual friends, social posts, and the passive digital trail we all leave behind painted the picture clearly enough. Miles had moved to another city, allegedly focused on career growth. Emily was seen attending a real estate seminar, trying to understand what she had gotten herself into. The house needed repairs, foundation cracks, HVAC issues, mounting property taxes. And the name on every bill was hers. Meanwhile, my life had only gotten quieter and better. The firm offered me a partner track. I declined. Instead, I opened my own boutique strategy agency, something I'd been planning for years but never pulled the trigger on. Now I had reason. Now I had clarity. Clients came faster than I expected. Word got out. Nathan Cole, the guy who never spoke much, but when he did, he meant it. I moved with intentional silence. No revenge posts. No self-congratulatory quotes. No need to prove anything. Because while Emily fought to maintain an image, I had reclaimed reality. One evening, as the sun dipped into the lake and cast a soft glow across my living room, I opened my laptop and refreshed my old LinkedIn page, the one I hadn't touched since before the fallout. I typed a simple update. Some houses are bought. Others are earned. Some love is real. Others are leverage. And some endings are the beginning of everything worth building. The interim CEO, a quiet and precise woman named Margaret Liu, greeted me with a tight but respectful smile. Minutes later, I received a message from an old colleague. Heard what happened. You handled it like a strategist, not a victim. Respect. I'm here to close the chapter. I closed the laptop. I didn't need praise. I needed peace. Outside, the wind rustled through pine trees. No alarms. No shadows. No ghosts. Just stillness, not the kind before collapse, but the kind after you've rebuilt everything they tried to take.